All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down a really important concept in contract law, and we're going to do it through a simple story about a property deal that went sideways. This is a case where a promise wasn't just broken, it was never true in the first place. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's set the scene. You've got two people here, Emma, who's the buyer, and Faye, the seller. Emma's looking to buy Faye's big pastoral property, and a massive part of this deal is the livestock that comes with it. Faye makes this very specific, very confident statement telling Emma, don't worry, there are about 2,000 young cattle on the land. And that statement, it becomes the bedrock of their whole agreement. But, after the deal is in motion, the reality hits. And it's not even close. Turns out, there aren't 2,000 cattle. There are only about 1,000. That's half of what was promised. And to make it even worse, the cattle were way older than the yearlings Faye had claimed they were. So you can imagine Emma is not happy. Not at all. She feels totally misled. This is not the deal she thought she was making, and she wants to rescind the contract. Basically, she wants to hit the undo button and just walk away. So the big question is, does the law have her back? Can you actually cancel a whole contract over a false statement like this? Well, this is where the law steps in with a special tool, made for exactly this kind of mess. It's a legal concept called misrepresentation, and it's designed to protect people who get into agreements based on bad information that tricked them into signing. So, to prove misrepresentation, you can't just say, they lied to me. The law has a really clear 4-point test, and you have to hit every single one. First up, there has to be a false statement of fact. Pretty straightforward. Next, that lie has to be told to the person who was actually misled. Then it had to be said to get them to sign on the dotted line. And finally, that statement had to be a really big reason, a material factor in their decision to go through with the deal. Okay, so let's take that 4-point test and apply it directly to our story. Does what happened to Emma actually check all 4 of those boxes? And when you lay it all out like this, man, it seems like a perfect fit. Was there a false statement of fact? Yup, the number and age of the cattle were just plain wrong. Was it addressed to Emma? Absolutely, Faye told her face to face. Was it meant to get her to sign? You bet it was. The livestock was a huge selling point. And was it a material factor? It sure seems so. Emma was relying on that information when she signed. So, looking at all this, you'd think it's a slam dunk for Emma. It's like a textbook case of misrepresentation. The contract is off, she gets to walk away. Case closed, right? But hold on. This is where the story takes a massive turn. Let's just add one tiny new detail to the story. What if, before she signed anything, Emma thought, you know what? I'm not just going to take Faye's word for it, and she went out and did her own inspection to count the cattle herself. See, that one little decision, doing her own inspection, is a total game changer. It flips the entire situation on its head. Let's see how this one choice to verify the facts for herself changes the outcome completely. This lays it out perfectly. It's like we've got 2 different timelines here. In scenario A, without an inspection, Emma is relying purely on what Faye told her. And because that was false, she can probably get out of the contract. But in scenario B, the moment she does her own inspection, she's not relying on Faye anymore. She's relying on her own eyes, her own investigation. And in that world, the contract stands. Her claim of misrepresentation just disappears. And that brings us to the absolute key concept here, reliance. For a misrepresentation claim to actually work, you have to prove that you relied on the false statement when you made your decision. The second Emma does her own homework and counts those cattle, she breaks that chain of reliance. The law now says, hey, your decision was based on your own findings, not on what Faye promised you. So what's the big takeaway here? It's this. The law's protection for misrepresentation is there for the person who trusts a promise that turns out to be false. It's not there to bail you out if you do your own investigation, find out the facts for yourself, and then decide to go ahead with the deal anyway. You know, this whole story isn't really about cattle at all. It's a fantastic illustration of this legal principle of reliance. It shows how the law has to strike a careful balance. It wants to protect people from being deceived, but it also expects people to be responsible for the information they find out for themselves.
And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question that goes way beyond contract law, doesn't it? In our own lives, in the deals we make, big or small, how do we make that call? When is it better to just trust someone's word And when does the responsibility fall on our shoulders to check things out for ourselves? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.